Hi, friends. I've got a gruesome parable for you today. It's one you've heard before as well. I told you a while back there's a book called The Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler. She's a sci-fi writer, spectacular book. She also has one called The Parable of the Talents that is a take on this one. It's still great. It's just not as good as Parable of the Sower. But this is one of those less than friendly, this is not necessarily a Sunday school parable, if you will, but this is from the 21st chapter of Matthew. Listen to another parable. There was a landowner who planted a vineyard, put a fence around it, dug a wine press, and built a watchtower. Then he leased it to tenants and went to another country. When the harvest time had come, he'd sent his slaves and tenants to collect his produce. But the tenant seized the slaves and beat one, killed another, and stoned another. That would be dead as well. Again, he sent other slaves, more than the first, and they treated them in the same way. Finally, he sent his son to them, saying, "They will respect my son." But when the tenants saw the son, they said to themselves, "This is the heir. Come, let us kill him and get his inheritance." So they seized him and threw him out of the vineyard and killed him. Now, when the owner of the vineyard comes, what will he do to those tenants? They said to him, "He will put those wretches to a miserable death and lease the vineyard to other tenants who will give him the produce at harvest time." Jesus said to them, "Have you never read the scriptures? The stone that the builder has rejected will become the cornerstone. This is the Lord's doing, and it is amazing in our eyes. Therefore, I tell you, the kingdom of God will be taken away from you and given to a people that produces fruit in the kingdom. The one who falls on the stone will be broken to pieces and will crush anyone on whom it falls." When the chief priests and Pharisees heard the parables, they realized he was speaking about them. They wanted to arrest him, but they feared the crowds because they regarded him as a prophet. Right? It's a little dark. Jesus speaks very angrily, if you will, against the Pharisees, the religious leaders of the time who had been tasked, right, with God's kingdom, tasked with the idea of caring for all of God's people. And instead of caring for these people, they created a structure, a system, a way that held people down and kept them in power and made everyone else struggle. Doesn't sound anything like today, right? This idea that Jesus then proposes to say, those of you who are given all of these things, you were given everything, abuse the power, you abuse the privilege, you didn't help out the orphan, the widow, and the stranger in your midst, like we read in the early scriptures. Time and time again, the cornerstones of the Hebrew faith that go throughout the entire Torah and the rest of the Old Testament. And Jesus calls him on it. He says, you've been asked to do this. You've been given the skills to do this, the ability and the honor and privilege. And what have you done? We struggle as a church sometimes, right? How much do you give away and how much do you keep? How much resource do you give to others and how much do you hold back for yourself? Right. There are seasons in a church's life, as in all churches, where money is tight, resources are tight in general, and you got to focus on you so that you can survive long enough so you can give back to others. There's also those times where you're riding high and you can do huge projects and spend lavish amounts of money on yourself. And those are those times where when you start only spending on yourself and only doing what's for you, and you forget all of those other people that we are tasked for caring about in our community, in sharing our resources and offering back some of the gifts that we have received from God and blessings back with those who are struggling without. There's a lot we as a people can do. Even in this strange time of pandemic, there are different ways that we can give back to a community who's struggling. And some will say, well, they've done this to themselves. Yet God doesn't put those restrictions on it. God doesn't say, well, some people have made bad choices and hence don't deserve my love. If you recall from earlier in the week, the parable of the workers in the vineyard, right? The ones who are the ones that didn't get picked for whatever reason, God offers the same grace and love as God does for those who have done it all along. My encouragement for you is to find ways that you can give back, to share your time, your talent, your treasures with anybody who's in need, whether they've earned it, whether they deserve it, whether you even like them. Because we are called to take the resources, the kingdom of God that has been entrusted to us, and invite and include as many as possible into that abundant grace and love. I'll talk to you soon.